So this government's new budget already appears to be forcing decisions that's going to bring demise upon businesses, workers, consumers, and at the worst of it, in my personal view, school children. So let's take a look at this. But first of all, if you are a fan of this new wider spectrum of discussion, please do hit the subscribe button, like the video, and ring the notification bell for further updates. And if you're not, dig into the library and subscribe anyway, because there's over a couple of thousand videos on law, everything from parking tickets to TV licensing and how to sue your builder if they mess up building work at your home. So do dig in there and have a look. I'll link some videos below. So first of all, let's go back to what I said about 3 weeks ago now, which was to do with, a prediction, really, that businesses were going to call upon job losses as a result of the employer national insurance increase. Take a listen to this first of all, because if there is a huge hike in national insurance for employers, that might make them make a decision, that might make large employers make a decision who've got thousands of employees, and then a percentage increase across thousands of employees is a large increase. They might then decide a huge job cull. Now, whether it's a job cull or whether it's increasing prices, these businesses are going to meet those costs somewhere. Now, we've got the smaller businesses and very large businesses. Now, the very large businesses are not likely to go out of business. They are likely to pass the cost on. They are not likely to just swallow it. They may take some of it, but believe me, they will pass most of it on. The smaller businesses are in much more trouble, which I'll come back to in just a moment. But as I reported previously, Sainsbury's also said that they were facing around £140 million increase and that shoppers may well face higher prices as a result. Tesco, on the other hand, reportedly is facing a £1 billion increase, and many of the bosses say that this risks a rise in prices across the board, whereas other businesses have said that they will do everything they can to avoid passing the buck on to customers. And that translates into lower wages or fewer jobs, because if they're not going to pass the cost on to customers, they are going to have to recoup that cost somewhere. And even if there is a reported £2.9 billion operating profit for Tesco this year, a £1 billion increase in their costs is not just going to be sliced off and everybody's happy. Certainly, if I was running that board and I wanted to make the shareholders happy, I would do something to cover those costs, because at the end of the day, it is about pleasing the shareholders. And obviously, there's a degree of maintaining the reputation of the company and so on, but they will have to look to cover those costs somewhere. In my view, of course, that's not saying what they've said they're going to do. This is just my opinion here. But on the other hand, hospitality sector bosses have also said that this will unquestionably cause closures and job losses. And in a letter, over 200 signatories have said that the hospitality industry is disproportionately impacted by an unsustainable hike in the employer national insurance, obviously because there's not just the increase in national insurance, but the switch to the threshold from £9,100 to £5,000 to pay those contributions. So that is going to affect hospitality, which is notoriously workforce heavy. And not only that, shops and chains have said that they are now abandoning plans to open new stores. The Entertainer, one of the UK's largest toy retailers, reported in Business Matters, has abandoned plans to open 2 new stores following this decision by this government to raise national insurance. And those plans obviously would have incorporated lots of new jobs, lots of growth in the economy and so on, which everybody wants, but now will not happen. But also, the first victim of this is reported by The Telegraph. A British manufacturing company said it's going to close down 4 factories. So this is not just a lack of growth and a lack of new jobs or increasing wages. This is closing down 4 factories, which I understand employs, I think, 150 people, and is now going to outsource this manufacture elsewhere because it's simply unsustainable. So this is not just affecting the salaries of those workers, it's affecting their very jobs. And so a lower increase in wages is probably favourable to losing the job altogether. But this is the very reality for some of these businesses that are just not going to be able to sustain their business in the UK with the costs rising. Because remember, it's not just a case of employer national insurance. but there's all sorts of other costs and increases as well. But not only that, in the worst case, in my personal view, is an example of just one, and there will be more than one, private school closing because the parents have been asked to pay an additional £2,000 on average on top of the school fees, which they just won't be able to afford. Now, it's all very well for some people to say, if you can afford the fees, then surely you can afford the VAT. That's a ridiculous thing to say. I actually saw a thread by a so-called finance reporter, investigator type person the other day who ridiculed this in exactly that way, to say that people should just be able to afford it. They can afford the increase year on year in those fees, because fees do increase year on year by a few percentage points. Inflation goes up a few points each year as well, etc. So everything generally goes up. But you slap 20% on this thing, suddenly that's taking it way off the standard scales. And so I thought that was quite a ridiculous thing to say or to compare. But I digress. This school is reportedly closing down. So it is not just one or two children's places, which I've already said there are many examples that the local authorities just simply cannot find those places available, and therefore are having to pay for transport to send that child to another school somewhere else that is available, or in the worst case scenario, pay for a place in a private school because they have a duty to provide a place for that child. They simply can't do so, and so they have to pay for the private school. But there is a statement here from the governors, which I find incredibly sad, because not just for the children, but for everybody that is working within this institution to provide education to children, and that is what they are there for. It says, it is with deep sadness that the governors confirmed that they're currently reviewing the structure of Cardiff School, and that it is likely to close from the end of the spring term 2025, unless a commercial solution can be found. The governors are actively continuing to explore all possible avenues to avoid closure, but wanted to give Cardiff's community as much notice as possible at this stage. And here's where the number of different things kick in for certain businesses like this. The introduction of VAT on independent school fees mid-academic year further compounded the loss of charitable business rates relief. You see, some schools are facing hundreds of thousands of pounds increase because they are losing the charitable business rates relief. So by operating buildings, etc., for the school, which obviously they have to do, they are now losing those exemptions. And it's not just the VAT on the school fees, but the school itself is now facing hundreds of thousands of pounds in additional fees. Consequently, so in addition to employers' national insurance contributions, has put a great deal of pressure on parents and schools. Consequently, a number of Cardiff's parents have been left with no alternative option but to give notice to withdraw their child from the school, either at the end of the autumn term or at the end of the academic year. Our focus is now on supporting Cardiff's families to secure places for their children at other local schools, as well as supporting the staff to ensure the children continue to receive an outstanding education for the remainder of their time at Cardiff. We would like to take this opportunity to thank the parents who've worked tirelessly to make it such a special place, etc. And I think that's incredibly sad that this is not just an increase. It's not just one or two children. It's not just affecting the education of those children, but they will all be displaced and forced elsewhere. And let me just give you a cross comparison. When we go to court in, let's say, a family case, we're arguing over custody of the child, care arrangements for the child, with whom the child will live and with whom the child spends time, when and where and how, and etc. And so one of the really important factors that we discuss in court is where the child goes to school. The child's circle of friends, where they live, how close to the family and friends and school they live. And for example, if mum and dad separate and dad moves miles away, then the court is very unlikely to force that child to travel 100 miles away to spend time with dad on the weekend. If it's far away from everything that they are used to, it's much more likely they make dad come into town. And the reason I'm telling you all this is the court in those cases takes the interests of the child as paramount. And the court puts that above everything else. If it's inconvenient for mum and dad, so what? It's all about the child. What is the best thing for that child? And so and one of the big things for that is the school. And so if the child is enrolled in a school and is settled there, that is a significant factor that the court will take into account in any family case. And so that may inform and even decide where that child is to live and with whom they will live. Because if mum lives in the area, or equally if dad lives in the area that the child goes to school, that may be the deciding factor, because the court takes that into consideration as one of the strong factors. And so here, when we have schools reportedly closing down completely as a result, this is nothing short of a disaster. It is absolutely abhorrent, it's absolutely unnecessary, and there are far better ways of dealing with this. But this is just to give you an idea. This is across the board. It is not just one type of business. It's not just one category of person. It is going to affect businesses, the people that own those businesses. Even if you take a big company like Tesco, in which people own shares, etc., they may have shares tied to their pension or investments and so on. Those are at risk of being affected if the business is affected. But let's trickle that down. The workers are likely to be affected because those wage increases are going to be lower, or they may even reduce. Even big businesses may reduce the staff because of the costing involved. Down another level, consumers are going to be affected because the costs are going to go up. But then let's move down again to smaller businesses. Many of those smaller businesses will have to cut their staff because they just simply won't be able to continue otherwise. They may close factories, such as the example we've just seen, or they will certainly consider to reduce wages or reduce the increase in those wages because of the costs to the business. And obviously they will want to avoid passing costs on to consumers, but ultimately they may have no choice. So everybody's going to lose out somewhere or another. And then moving right down, which I think is absolutely abhorrent, to private schools. And this is just one of a number of examples that I've seen. And granted, some of them may have already been struggling, but this may be the final push that closes them down. And then we have hundreds of completely innocent children having their education turned upside down as a result of this budget. So people ask me why I've talked about this. This is why. It affects everybody. When I started this channel, I said I wanted to help you understand law and things that affect everybody on an ongoing basis. When I started this channel, it was during lockdown because lots of people struggled to get hold of a lawyer. They struggled to get hold of some guidance. It can never be taken as advice, but they struggled to get hold of guidance. So I thought the leverage that I could have if I were to create this platform here to reach a number of people, then a lot of people can hear the same guidance. Then it's me leveraging what I can give out to the community at large. I can give you general guidance on a number of things. And I'm humbled that I've received countless letters and thanks and emails from people, handwritten notes. I really appreciate those when they come through to thank me that, again, very humbly, that someone has been helped in some small way by my videos here to get through their case, whether it's their divorce, their small claim, their family case, whatever it might be. Even a parking ticket. People have got extremely stressed about parking tickets, but they've managed to sort them out because of my videos here. So I'm very grateful for those comments. And that's why I'm talking about this, because it does affect everybody here. One final question I will address at the very tail end of this video, because I don't think it's important enough to put it at the beginning, is why didn't I criticize previous government? Well, I was just talking about legal videos then. It's as simple as that, really. I started this channel about 4 years ago. I was talking about law. I was talking about law for about 2,000 and a bit videos before I even mentioned any politics. So people that saying you're only doing politics, I'm unsubscribing, well, see you later, because I've been talking about law for over 2,000 videos for over 4 years. If 1 or 2 videos about politics, about stuff that really affects people, is going to put someone off, then I don't need them to watch anyway. But I'll tell you this, they will be back when they get a parking ticket and they want some advice about that. So either way, I hope this helps. Even the people that don't like me, I still hope that it helps them in some small way. And I know that some of them subscribe, because YouTube tells me the people that subscribe, even when they criticize me, it still tells me that they subscribe. So I still hope that it helps them. But if this does help you and you do like to hear just a refreshing, honest, neutral, unbiased, because I am unbiased, I don't wholeheartedly support the previous government like some people seem to think I do. I get called left, right, middle, and all sorts of stuff. So if you like that approach, please do like the video. Please do subscribe down below. That helps my channel grow. I feel like I am soaring towards 1 million subscribers now, which I'm really grateful for. So please do that. I hope you enjoyed this little rant, if it is a rant. And so thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.